How are you guys doing today? So the plan for today is to run through how I would design this using Easel primarily. In order to get the text to look like that, we're gonna have to jump over into Inkscape. I guess I could close out Lightburn, huh? Inkscape to get that text to look like that. Because that font is not. Oops, I didn't mean to look that up. I meant to open my app. That font is not available in Easel directly. Oh no, do I not have Inkscape on this computer? Okay, I guess we might have to pick a similar font, or I guess there's another way to get the font in there that works almost just as good. We can kind of cheat that one real fast. All right. Make sure that this is up. And we're ready here in just a second. Oh yeah, there we go. How you doing, Dylan? How you doing today? Can you hear me okay? Is the mic actually working? Sometimes I know it doesn't. Actually, I think we're... Looks like it might be kind of loud. That's okay. I'll try and fix that. All right, we'll close out. New project in Easel. And we should be just about good. I could see how long it takes to... I think it's going to take a few minutes too long to install Inkscape. So we'll do it a different way. Usually I do most of my designing on a laptop, but we can... I'll show some trickery on how we can do it over here using Font to do this. We want a custom preview of the word welcome, which is what we get right there. Or no, America was our flag on this one, right? We can either put the word welcome there or the text America, but a trick here is to use the font and then screen capture this and then just to image trace that stuff right there, although it does come out pretty small. Or once you install it, you can actually type it out in Word and then screen capture that. If I had Word installed on this computer, probably should have ported everything over from the other computer, huh? Up here under font, we can choose. We'll have to close that, actually, reopen it. All right. Awesome. We'll see if I can install Inkscape in a matter of seconds. It might install really fast on this computer. Let's try. Let's see here. So the font that I'm going to use for this is it's actually a new one that was recently uploaded to font.com called where'd it go? Stay Dreaming. I kind of like this one. I've been using it for a few of the connected fonts like this, and you can easily connect these other letters back over to get a nice flowing letter, right? Word. But you could choose any other sort of script type font in there, right? And if you select a handful to like compare, you can use that sort of preview of the words to see what it looks like right here when we type in the custom text. But here we can go back and select by type using this selections up here, right? So we'll go with a calligraphy looking font. And these vintage signature ones connect real nice. This one here looks real nice too, right? So there's quite a few different fonts in here you can pick from. This one here with a nice heart. That's like basically it's a symbol. You'd have to either select it from their symbol selection or type in the ASCII code in order to get that one up there. All right. So I'm going to use the one I wanted to, Stay Dreaming, and it looks like we are done with Inkscape. So that's pretty good. So if you don't have an Inkscape, it is a free program. And really, you just go up here to download and choose your operating system. It is Windows, Linux, and Mac operating systems. So, yeah. Anyway, so yeah, it's a free software. We'll open that real fast, and I'll show you how to do that. And if you open it for the first time, like I just did, you're stuck with, I mean, you can change what sort of canvases you want. I like the default one. Some people like the dark a lot. And we'll just go into a new document and then bring in my text for the word. All right. Make sure that I haven't lost you guys in the chat. All right, we're good. All right, so for this, we need to get the word America like that over there. And for that, we need the text box here. And double click on this and you can select your, text from this option here. And I want that Stay Dreaming. Hopefully it shows in here. And then once you install custom ones, sometimes they show on the bottom too. Ooh, no love. All right. Is that still... Sorry, I got distracted by the... All right, there we go. So the Stay Dream one should already be installed. We can... I'll just show you how to install another one real fast. And all you really got to do is download it. And then once it downloads, we open it. We have to extract all. And this is going to keep on popping up on the other screen. And once we extract it, we can double click on this one up here to open it. And we click install. And it'll take a second to install, and it just finished. And now we're done with that. We can close this out. We can actually delete this, the two different files there if you want to. And then we would have to close Inkscape, then open it back up. Give me just a second to make sure the other one is installed too, because I'm pretty sure I installed it earlier on this computer, but I might not have. That's the problem with having two different computers, right? All right, so those fonts should be installed now. They're not going to show up in the list immediately. I'm going to go ahead and close. Yeah, they're not going to be here. So I'm going to go ahead and close Inkscape and reopen it. We should have it in this list here now. Stay Dreaming. And I forgot what the second one was that I installed, but I can find it right here. Hello Honey were the two that I installed, okay? So Stay Dreaming and Hello Honey. So we've got America right here as our font. Text as our text. You're right. And like that. It's similar to the image, right? I guess it's a different font altogether. But we can use Font Finder or what's my font to do a search to find the exact font. But I like this one well enough, right? Or we could try the other one that I selected. What was it? Hello Honey. Just so you can see what that one looks like. It's got the heart options in there. And those heart ones would be as a symbol. And if I open that font back up, ooh, now I don't see it in here as a symbol under the list. But anyway, yeah, we could go to, so the next idea is to take this America one and we can enlarge it. Really doesn't need to be that big because we're going to save it as an SVG, and then by making an SVG we can import that into Easel. So go over here and save as, and if we select plain text, that should, or plain SVG, that should convert this from a font that Easel has a problem with importing over to a plain SVG without those embedded fonts. If it doesn't, then I'll go back and show you the other trick. But I've been doing this with images lately and it's been working just fine. I haven't tried text in a while, so we'll do that. So again, the default every time is going to be Inkscape SVG unless you change those defaults. And I didn't mean to save it in that folder. So we'll just do it one more time. Plain SVG, America, saved into this desktop. And we'll go over here into Easel. Import SVG. And ooh, see, we get this pop-up about can't import SVG text. Okay, so I can select import anyway, and we'll see what it does. It might screw it all up. It might import nothing. Yeah. So come back over here in Inkscape. The next trick is to do path and object to path. And see how when I like triple clicked on it there, we get like the nodes here that you usually get with a vector. So that's kind of clearly identifying that these are no longer text elements, but they've been converted via this object to path conversion thing to actual vectors. So we'll do that again. Save as. So object to path is what I added to the title of this file now. Save that. Jump back over one more time to Easel. SVG. And now we don't get that pop-up because our text is no longer really text. It's just a vector of that font, okay? So for this project, that door hanger, I usually do about 18-inch rounds. And I'll cut the round out, but just to get a good idea of the size here, we're going to do that and throw a circle in here. That is 18 by 18. Edit, center to material, cut, outside the path, and now we have our circle there to kind of size everything up to. I'm actually going to lock that one in place. That way I don't move that circle on accident. And now for this, we can, resize it to make it sort of look like the other design to an extent, So we got it full size here, about side to side, and then we'll throw the stripes and the stars on there. And really, once you do a design like this, if you wanted to, I mean, you could sell your designs, right? As an SVG. So we've got that here. We can also continue using center to material to make sure that it's aligned right. Now, what I was going to show you guys is how to add this cut in here into the actual stripe so that things can kind of embed in that stripe below. Now, these text that I picked here, we really only have the two parts of the A that would like embed in that stripe pretty well. But you can do the same thing with the stars above and kind of have a cutout for your text, right? In order to do that, the easiest way to do it, to make sure that stuff fits right, is to basically use the puzzle generator, or we can kind of make a negative of the letter by making it 0 depth and use that to cut into the shape if it's enough of a curve that's larger than the bit that you plan on using. Get close on this out to make sure that I can see what. All right. So now that we've got the text, the next thing to do is add some stripes and some stars, right? So the stripes are relatively easy. We just need to choose kind of what the size is going to be and bring them in like this. And then we'll create an array of them going down. The easiest way to do this is to find the height we want. And it looks like the way I just kind of eyeballed it there, it's just over an inch. So we'll make that right at 1 inch for these. And again, if you want it to overlap like that, you can. That does add some more steps to this to do that cut in. Or you can leave them, you know, just enough down below where it's not going to cut into it like that. Kind of up to you. I can show you how to do the overlap cut in if you guys want. Let me know. But I'm going to continue like this, and if you do want to see it, we'll just slide it up and do that. So with one stripe here, all we got to do is come over into the apps and use the replicator, this app here, to create multiples. We only want one column, and we want multiple rows going down. Let's just do 5 to be safe. It's easier to delete them than to come back in here and run this all over again, right? And since our stripes are 1 inch tall, we want the spacing in between to also be 1 inch. That way there's equal spacing in there. We can see the original design, they didn't do that, so the white stripes look a little bit more narrow than the red. You can change it up if you want like that. I mean, this is all really about your own artistic desires, right? So if you use center distance, it's going to you go from the center point of this design element to the center point of this one, right? So since they're 1 inch wide, if I leave it 1 inch and choose that, they're all going to be touching. Watch. Like that. So I could select 2 inches and I get the same result as 1 inch without that checked, if that makes sense. All right, so we'll just import those. And drag them down. Ooh. I like having a red on the very bottom. Let's see if I can pull this one. Like how that one is right there. So we'll have to either cut into that A or move these letters up a little bit, right? And you see how since I locked the circle there, I don't have to deselect it when I want to move these around, because I can't move the circle because it's locked. So even though I just selected the circle and I'm dragging stuff around, it's not moving the circle itself. And that's kind of like the benefit of locking stuff in place. And then if I want to realign the word America to the center, I can select that circle that's locked there and this text and then use this center alignment tool. Oops. Once the text is joined together, sorry, select that, deselect the circle, combine, then I can select all this stuff and use that center alignment tool and it will realign it for me. All right, so let's go ahead, let's move this up and do what I was mentioning about cutting into that stripe with the letter. Doing this other part up here, the stripe, I don't know if you're going to want to do that or not. That makes it, you know, even another piece to have to glue up there, but you can do that too. Since we're going to be cutting these as separate parts, not all from one design. So the whole idea here is that this is a one solid backer with these other pieces just glued in place on top. So once the design is set up here, I like to then use the work pieces down here below to split it all up. So we can do this little cutout here and it'll all glue back in together. You can either paint it first and then cut it. These ones here in this example, it looks like the stripes were laser cut, and the text from America might have been laser cut and then painted afterwards, because you can see here the edges are gray, whereas the edges of these are black, and so are the stars. So the blackened edge kind of tells me that they were painted or stained before they were cut. And the gray edge on the word America tells me that it was cut and then painted. So you can do either way. They both work. With a CNC, it's easier to paint afterwards, obviously. But if you're doing this with a laser, you can do it either way. So I'm going to cheat over here and come into the Pro Design library and choose a star. And these ones here are kind of obtuse. They don't really quite fit the flag structure, right, for the stars. Hey Craig, nice to see you. But so if you wanted to more duplicate those, it's kind of this kind of fatter star, right, where it's the angles here are not as tight as they're normally supposed to be for a flag. If you wanted to replicate the flag more, you would pick one more like this one here. So sorry, let me zoom in here. So we got the kind of obtuse looking one is more like this guy, or this one even, right? And this one here is kind of more like the traditional flag, because it's like a tighter angle. Does that make sense? So I'm going to pick that one. And it just kind of plops it in there. To make this selection easier too, we can do stuff like changing the depth. That way when you want to go and select things, and after making copies of it and whatnot, you don't have to select them all manually, right? Like if I make a bunch of copies of this, I can actually select one, go up here to edit, and select by matching depth. And now I just selected all those without having to select them and deselect the circle or anything like that, right? That's kind of a neat concept that I use sometimes when designing, is I'll fluctuate the depth of different things while I'm designing, since I know I'm going to split it up into different layers later on. Kind of helps me select stuff like that, you know? So for these, we can adjust the size of a few of them. And to do that, I'm just going to use the offset tool. Actually, we'll cheat and adjust the size of one using the offset tool, and then copy that one, right? I'm sorry, actually, we don't use offset tool. We want to just change the size. If we use offset, it's actually going to round all of the corners out. So instead, we just want to click to lock the aspect ratio and change the size here from 2 to like a 3-inch star. And then some of these, maybe 1.5. .25. Oops. Like I said, make sure to lock the aspect ratio. 3.25. I mean, I guess they're a star, so I could have changed both equally in this case. But sometimes that won't work out. So we've got 4 different sizes here to work with. And it's just really, I mean, you can lay them out here if you want, or what I would probably do is just lay out a handful of stars, cut them all, and then throw them on here afterwards. Now the ones that go on the edges here that are kind of overlapping the sides, those you would want to cut into, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. But we can do that using that same sort of reverse masking technique that I used in the past. And these are all kind of rotated different angles too, actually. Yeah. So we'll just kind of overlap some against the edge over there, and I don't know, you guys tell me, what do you think? This look okay? Maybe too many up there. All right. And we can do the same thing of cutting through the stripe here with a large star with some of the letters if you want to do that as well. It all kind of depends on what you want to go for artistically, right? And then, so once we do that, we can do the cut in thing here. The easy way to do that I like to do is to duplicate the workpiece over. Well, I guess you don't need to really see this anymore, do you? So let's hide that. And then have like a master copy here and then multiple duplicates, right? So then we can just start messing with this next one. Oops. Be careful where you have the mouse at when you, I like to hold Control and then use the scroll wheel here to zoom in and out. And that's how I do like a lot faster zooming, is I hold Control with one button with one finger, and then when I zoom in and out, it does this. But if I have it over the wrong spot, like down here where the workpieces are, it zooms the entire browser. So in Chrome, the reset button's up here, or you can press Control-0 to reset that. Just a neat little trick there, instead of having to use these zoom in and out buttons all the time. It's a little bit faster, and everything that's a little bit faster over time adds up, right? So for this, what I want to do is change these letters here to 0 depth, and I want to cut into this stripe using that letter. So as long as it's on top and we select both the stripe and the text here, we can combine. But you see we lost the word. If you ever want to do that combine but don't actually lose that word, like we want to keep that word for later things, we can, again, like we did with the circle shape, if we lock it before we combine, the word is still there, but I just cut through the stripe. See that? So the stripe is now cut through right here. And we really have 3 different pieces to this stripe now. In order to fit the bit in there to cut these out, I would actually want to separate these so I can kind of spread them out when it comes time to cut these stripes. I'm going to press Control-Z to undo this to move that stripe back, but we do know that it's cut now, right? If I unlock this word, I can move it out of the way now. So we know that that's cut. Everything with the word America is done. We can carve this out. So outside path, and we're ready to cut that shape out for the word America. So that's all done, ready to go. We just had to choose, you know, like where to put the tabs at to hold it well. I think that I've talked about in other videos is changing these to pockets anywhere where it's internal, so you don't have to deal with tabs in there to hold them in place. It's going to take more time to carve it, but you won't have to worry about cutting the tabs later, placing the tabs in the right spot for those inside little holes, right? Especially in, like over here in the E and the top of the R. You don't really want a tab in there just to hold something that small. You could probably even get away with just letting that get cut and be loose and get sucked up in the vacuum when it's that small. When it's a larger one, like the ones over here by this other letters, like the A and this other A, they might get lodged between the bit and the workpiece as the CNC tries to move and cause it to lose steps and kind of screw up your carves. So let me change one thing real quick here. So once you do that part, so we've cut through it for the A here, right? We also want to cut around the edge. That way these things line up to the side. And that's kind of why I went ahead and aligned everything up here, kind of the way I want it to be. Yeah. There's a little bit of white peeking down below here, so I might want to change that by moving this whole thing down a little bit. So we can select all these and just move them down just a little bit until we do cover up the bottom of that circle right there. We just need to go to right about there. Because remember, the circle is the inside part of here. The blue line. The blue line right there, right? So as long as this covers up the other blue line, then we are good. And you can see there how it does. All right. So in order to do the cutaway now into the stripes, to have the edges curved of those stripes, right? we have to create like a negative mask, which these are all, if you guys have seen the other videos before, these are a lot of the same techniques from the other projects that we've done, right? So yeah, actually, yeah, if you guys want, let's go ahead and do one more thing here, right? Share this project, then you guys can just I don't know if it's gonna like backslash in there as the name. Let's try that. All right, looks like it's okay, and we can just paste that over. Ooh, I think the live chat disappears for people, so I'll drop it in the video description too, real quick, in case you guys want this. Save that. So it'll be in the video description as well as over there in the comments. And then, so in order to create that negative masking, we'll go ahead and put another square here to cover all this stuff up. Set that to 0 depth. And again, we can use the circle here because I've already locked the circle in place, right? You can see the circle's locked. And combine, and we end up with, oops, they weren't the proper layering, were they? Oh, this needs to be a depth, this needs to be a 0 depth, and the circle needs to be on top because we want to erase the circle from that rectangle. So the rectangle and the circle both get selected at the same time, combine, and now we have this little bit here, right? So I'm going to go ahead and put the circle back to a depth and outside the shape like it was before, right? So now we have this gray part that's kind of covering it up. If I change that to 0 depth now, it's covering up exactly what we need to get rid of from these stripes. So we're going to do the same combining step again. Select the stripes and combine. And now all those stripes have been modified. That's an extra stripe. We can just delete that one. But all these stripes have been modified to now perfectly match up with the edge of that circle, if you place them at the exact right spot when you glue them down. So to do that, since I used 1-inch spacing, you could retain this stripe and cut it as an extra stripe to use as a spacer in between all these, since the stripe is 1 inch and so are the spacing. And that would at least help you get all these parallel. So you basically glue the bottom one with some CA glue, and then pull that spacer, put the spacer in there, glue the next one, so on and so forth, right? Just make sure not to accidentally glue the spacer in place. But yeah, so the stripes are all done and ready to actually cut. They just need to be cut outside the path. Oh, there's one other problem here I kind of forgot about. When we set that to outside the path, you'll notice the bit probably can't get in here. All right, so let me bring that back over here. And if we look at the preview, the bit can't get inside of those two little pockets, right? So we have to separate those out. In order to do that, we can select the apps over here. This is getting a little full, isn't it, this screen? The apps, and use the shape exploder. This one here looks like a grenade. And that's going to then separate these into be their own pieces, right? So when it comes time to cut all this stuff out, you can kind of nest things together, as long as there's enough spacing in between these to fit your bit. And to add tabs to hold stuff in place. But yeah, we can place these over here like this. Select all these, set them to cut outside the path. And then we've got a bunch of tabs on stuff here that probably don't really need it. The neat part is if these are all combined, you can actually share the tabs together. So you can kind of set the spacing based on what you see here for the black line in between these pieces, right? So as long as there's enough room here for a little bit of tab space in between them, then the bit's going to fit in between them too, right? So as long as we got a little bit of black showing next to it, then the bit's going to fit in there. Oops, don't stretch on an accident like that. All right, so what I'm going to do next here is combine some of these together. Actually, I'm going to leave this one here a little bit separate. We can combine these main ones that are almost touching together. And then our tabs here are shared. Anytime you combine something, it changes it to on shape path. So make sure you set that back to outside of the path. So anytime you combine, it puts it back at this one. And when we're cutting shapes out, we really want them to be outside of the path. All right, so for these, we'll set that to outside the path. And then we can select where our tabs are going to go, right? That's probably way too many, right? Let's go with 12. And then you can move them around wherever you want. I suggest having some in between the parts like this to help hold them all together, right? Those are going to also make them pretty easy to cut off afterwards. And since our edges over here are the curved ones to match the circle, I would avoid putting tabs on there. Otherwise, when you go to sand it, sanding around the curve to remove those tabs is going to be kind of a little bit of a pain. And then if you've got areas like this where you've got extra tabs, you can actually get rid of them by either reducing the quantity, but then it kind of randomly picks which one it's going to get rid of. So if you want to choose which one to get rid of, you can just hide it on top of another one that you want to keep. And if you don't get it perfectly aligned, right, then you end up with it's going to be a little wider, right? But if you get it pretty close, it's going to be the width of all the rest within a really, really close amount. All right, so those are basically set up to cut those out, the stripes. There's some extra tabs over here. Probably only need like 2 on these little shapes. And again, these are just the parts that go inside the bottom of the word America, right? Probably outside. 1 tab for this one even. It's probably adequate because it's such a tiny part. Yeah, let's go with 1 for this as well. See how I picked which one to delete? I wanted to delete the other one. So I could have done that hiding technique on that one too, right? And then I mentioned this spacer. We talked about using this as a spacer. So we can put it there on top like we do with the rest of these, or not. It's really up to you. If I do put it up there, I'd have to do the combining step again. Yeah, sure, why not? But that's going to move all my tabs around, so I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to put it up there. There we go. There's a little bit of extra waste because of the way that I did that just now. But if you wanted to combine them all and then reassign all your tabs to the right places, you could do that. All right, so what we just did there, hey, 3D HP Vegas, that's cool. I wouldn't mind going back again pretty soon. So what we did there for the stripes, we're going to repeat for these stars that are outside the border. All the rest of these stars, we can actually just move out of the way and then set them to cut outside the path, and they're all ready to go as well. We can choose where these tabs all go on them. Again, I like the idea of kind of nesting stuff together real good, and then combining it and then choosing where the tabs go to kind of make sense to hold things in place, right? Sometimes you don't even want to nest super close if you've got plenty of material, right? Because if you nest too close, it could cause breakouts to occur, or you're going to need extra tabs to make it rigid enough to hold stuff together. And sometimes it's better to not even nest too closely to each other, right? So we can either combine these, or I can fix these ones first to add a little cut edge like we did here to the stripes. And it's just the same process over again, throwing in another shape here. I like to use the rectangles for this. You don't have to set it to a pocket, but I like to do that to kind of show you how it's going to look and to make sure that you can tell that it's in the front before you combine. So I'm going to select those two shapes here and combine. And now I've got the rectangle selected, or the cutaway rectangle selected, right? And we just need to do that same combine with this sort of reverse masking with these letters here, right? Or it's still a masking, but it's outside of the circle. And again, after that combined shape, we are basically ready to start nesting those in. But since they're combined now, you could have done that combine process 4 different times for these, or combine once and now they're a group, basically, and we can use the Shape Exploder app again. And that gives us the shapes to kind of bring in here. And depending on what your material size is, maybe you got like a small piece here, whatever shape it is you need to fit it into, you could bring in a rectangle to emulate your workpiece and use that to kind of fit your, fit your parts onto your stock. Kind of like that, right? So if I got this piece of material that's only that big to work with, that's already stained or painted blue, or I'm going to, paint it afterwards. Since you're CNCing this, I would suggest painting it afterwards. So those are ready to go. The stars are good. The word America is good. The stripes are good. And this circle here, we have to cut this outside the path all the way through. Now, if you wanted to replicate this, now that we've got all these pieces that are set up, you can even go to Project and download the zip, current workpiece, download this. When I open this zip, it does it in the other window, but extract all. I'm just going to extract that same folder name. And then end up with, over here, the design hidden in a couple folders as an SVG file. So there is the design that we just made as an SVG. You can import this in a Lightburn and then cut these parts out with a laser if you're doing that, right? I don't know of any discount codes for Easel other than buying 3 years at a time, which drops it from $25 a month down to $16.80 or something like that if you buy a 3-year package. The only thing they did to discount it, even when they did that change, is they offered, after making the change, about 3 month, I want to say 3 month, no, it might have been like 1 month time period. You could buy the 3-year package at the older price, which dropped it down to, I think, like $12 a month. But even since they've raised the price, I haven't seen discount codes for Easel anywhere, actually. If anybody had discount codes for Easel, right, it would be a few brands that they work with for marketing, which is Brandon Collum, aka Make or Break. Oh man, I'm gonna completely butcher his YouTube channel, aren't I? is it Make or Break? Make or Break Shop on YouTube, because Brandon is also that's his personal channel, but he also works for Invitables. And then you got Highline Guitars. They work with Invitables a lot to do marketing stuff. So if anybody had a discount code, it'd probably be them, but I haven't seen them anywhere. All right. Yeah, so we can light burn. So if any of you guys have lasers, I've got a few around here. You could take that SVG and then come over here and import it into light burn. It should be under my downloads. And then that American door hanger one is right there. And now we've got the design over here in Lightburn. And we can set these up to cut out. I mean, obviously you want to run different profiles in your machine. And since I put that square around here to kind of emulate my stock, that little square came over as well. But when you first bring an SVG that's like this into Lightburn, it's all grouped together. So you'd have to ungroup it like this. And now I can select individual pieces. And since I really don't need that square in there, we'll just go ahead and delete that. And these other shapes here are kind of ready to go one at a time. You could cut them out from the same material, or a trick that I like to do is use a different layer here and turn off the output. And then it ignores that while creating the cut. So here's the preview of the current cut, which is just the circle shape. Those are not my normal cut settings, so that's actually for engraving. So if I was going to cut this out, we could use this for 3mm ply. There should be another one here that's set up for 5mm, but that might be on my other computer only. Yeah. So if I was cutting 3mm plywood with the X tool, 10 watt, those are the settings that I would use to cut through this shape in 3mm plywood. So in order to cut it all out of that same material, it would take an hour and 43 minutes to cut these shapes using the little 10 watt laser through 3mm plywood. So I would obviously paint all these first, that way I'm not dealing with painting these little pieces. But if you wanted to do it on the CNC, you can do the same thing over here with, now that you've got the design set up, splitting up the work pieces. So we would have one with your backer, and then maybe a different one with all these other pieces that you could paint afterwards. And I did not put these tabs where I would usually have them at, but placing them near the edges of the stars is usually best. The way you're only sanding off one straight piece, if you sand at all. Because if you have a router table set up with a pattern bit, then you could just run these through the router table, and that'd be a lot easier than trying to get a sander in there to sand all these off. All right, so, and then this, obviously the default of 4 tabs for this large circle is probably not enough. Depending on what you're cutting this out of, I would probably use 8 tabs. That way I get 2 for each of these corners. And then depending on what you're cutting out of, if you want to use the corner as your 0 point, I think I've talked about this in other videos before, but Easel has updated how you can do carving from the center if you wanted to. So this is ready to cut the circle based on the center point of my stock, and we could use slightly oversized stock if you wanted to, which is what I would personally do. That way there's a little bit more rigidity around the outside here and room for error with aligning stuff, right? And then I just draw an X from corner to corner, and that tells me the center point to use for cutting this out. And then for the rest of these letters, Oh, I can't delete it because it's locked still. So make sure if you have problems deleting stuff, unlock it first. And then, so another pet peeve of mine sometimes is wood grain direction. So you may or may not want to keep all these aligned the same way. You could change the wood grain around, right? If we look at some of these, it's hard to see in this picture, but the wood grain goes different directions on the different stars, which you may or may not like. Maybe you want them to go a certain way. So you could rotate all of your stars so that it matches the wood grain a certain way, right? But anyway, we're ready to just about cut this, assuming that both of our pieces of material are 20 by 20, the one for the circle, and then one to cut these shapes out. They are ready to go. Yeah, so if any of you guys want this, you can click that link now, and then when you do that, actually, I'm going to cheat here and open an incognito window. That way, what it'll do is it'll open like this. You can click this blue button here that says, hey, you're playing in the Easel sandbox. To save this project, make a copy. And because right now you're just looking at my project if you click that link. And when you click that blue button, it'll save it into your project list. It'll save a copy of it into your project list. So then if you make changes to it, those are your changes and they don't affect the original or the copy that anybody else opens. All right. So yeah, I think we're done with that project for now. If you guys want to see what I got behind me here, I have ooh, that works a little better. Yeah. Oh, I guess I could clear that off of the text off the screen. So over here behind me, I have this X-Carve that I picked up. It was about an hour drive up to this guy's house, and then I managed to he was at an appointment, and I was not expecting his wife to walk over to my car and knock on my door, so she kind of surprised me. And I had my keys sitting in the passenger seat, and I hopped out and I locked the door on my way out and managed to lock my keys in my car while picking this machine up. Luckily, AAA came to save the day. I also locked my phone in my car, so forgot the guy's name and his wife's name, but thanks for calling AAA for me. Because they came and let me in the car, but they had to go to a different graduation for the kid, so I'm sitting out there on the curb with an X-Carve and locked out of my car. Pretty fun experience. Anyway, so I put the spindle on here already. I don't know, can you guys see? Yeah, you can. All right, I put the spindle on here already, and let's make it so I can see too. And I have to, the cable that came for it was super short. It would only reach to about there, and it wouldn't go into this whole section of the wasteboard going from here directly into the VFD. So I had to order another cable. And then really all you need is the spindle kit that I'm going to put a listing for when I do the whole instructions on how to do this. And the Phoenix connector if you don't already have them. They only sell them in 10 packs on Amazon. They're not that expensive for a pack of 10. They're like, I think like $7. So I might mail a few of those out if you guys ask me for them instead of having to pay for them. I'll just go in the mail. Yeah, so I'll be wiring that up later this weekend and then put a video out about how to do that, the whole wiring, which cable goes where. And the important part is really how to set up the VFD to allow the controller to tell it what RPM to run at and when to start and stop. That way you're not dealing with pushing the start button and turning the knob on the front of it to the right RPM. Because you can always do that with a spindle, right? You don't have to wire it into the controller if you don't want to. You can use the manual controls on the front of that controller if you want to push the start button, turn it up, turn the RPM to the right RPM that you want to use, and then make sure you hit stop when it's done. But if you wanted to automate it for you, so that when the carve stops, it just stops the spindle. Then you'd have to follow those instructions in the setup of the VFD, which is a little bit tricky to configure that way. Which is why so I bought this one. It's like the cheapest one off Amazon, but Daniel over at SethCNC sells a kit, and he walks, I believe he's got them all configured already, because he's got them custom cabled. They're in custom enclosures and everything. So I believe he's already programming those for you, and if not, I know he's really good on documentation anyway. So if you are looking at getting a spindle and you don't want to do it all yourself, even though I'm going to show you how to do it, you can get the SethCNC ones, and they'll already be set up for you. But this one here was, I want to say $350 plus an extra 20 bucks for the longer cable. But yeah, so far, problems with this machine. I mean, I bought it from the guy without even having a chance to test it. I was in a hurry, and so was he. It's 300 bucks, right? So I couldn't really go wrong. All the motors and everything works. The only issue that I found so far is that the limit switch was, the tab was busted. So I kind of jerry-rigged it so it works still. But I'll probably be buying a new tab. And then the other plans for this is making risers for this side here, as well as some large dust blockers for the middle, right? I think it's Pete that sells those dust covers that go on the X-Carve, and that does enclose the wheels, but the rest of the belt is all still exposed. So I'd rather just have blocks that kind of go up here and shield it from that. All right, that's the plan for now. And you guys have anything you want to go over? If you want me to show you anything else, have any questions about stuff, have your own project you want me to look at, you can put the project link like I did there in the chat if you want. In order to get your own project link, you just go to project, share, change it to unlisted here, and you can put the link of your project in the chat. If you're ever here on Friday and you want me to look at your project, or you can DM it to me earlier that day, or a few other, whenever, and I'll take a look at it for you. Oh, that's funny. YouTube is warning me that I'm streaming with a higher bit rate than they recommend. So I think they expect there to be latency, but on this particular computer, which is why I love live streaming on this one, my upload speed is ridiculous. So I'll give you guys a chance to catch up, because there's a little bit of delay between when I talk and when you guys hear me. So if you don't have anything else, any other projects you want me to look at, give it about a minute, and then I'm going to get out of here. All right? It is my kid's last day of school, but I kind of skipped out on the last 2 live streams, not feeling good. And then, so almost a third of a gig per second upload speed. So it is my kid's last day of school, so I might just get out of here and go pick them up. Anyways, verify that this is good. Looks like it's not updating. There we go. All right. So if you guys want that link, like I said, it's in the pinned comment over there. I think the comments go away once the live stream stops. So I also put it in the video description if you want to come back and get it, if you haven't already opened that and save the project. If you want to. Again, it's up to you guys. hopefully next week we'll have the X-Carve back up. And yeah. All right. All right, you guys. Thanks for hanging out with me today. You guys have a great weekend as well, all right? Take care, guys.